it's a cat and mouse game. It's easier to attack than to defend. When you attack a website or a technology, you just need to find one hole, in the defense. When you defend on the other side, you need to anticipate all possible things that, not only block what exists today, but things, that could be done tomorrow. It's really important, in my opinion, to invest in all the signals, all the detection techniques in parallel. Because if you become so good at some point, but you're not good enough in the others, that the attackers are smart and lazy, they will just target the weakest link and they will completely ignore your obfuscation, and they will do it differently.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Scraping Insights, a series of video interviews created by the Web Scraping Club. Today, we have Antoine Vastel with us. He is a head of research at DataDome and a cybersecurity expert. Together, we'll talk about how bot detection work and his experience in this field. If you want to know more about these topics, you cannot miss this video.
This interview is brought to you by databoutique.com, a marketplace for web data.
Bonjour Antoine, bienvenue. And that's where my French stops. So thank you for being here and Scraping Insights video series. I'm so happy to have you here because I read avidly your blog, I think from 6-7 years. When I started my career in web scraping, I started reading your blog. So I'm particularly happy to have you here.
Thank you, and yeah, same for me. Happy to be here today. I like your blog, and at DataDome, we like your blog as well. So happy to be able to participate to your podcast or live, let's say.
Thank you so much. I wanted to have you here in particular because I think you are one of the few people, that I know in the industry that not only is skilled and technical prepared, but also happy to share at least something of of your knowledge, because it's always both the web scraping and the antibot industry are most a secretive way industry. So it's it's hard to find someone to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, bot security is mostly treated as a black box. And yeah, we try to keep most of the signals secret. But yeah, even before I joined DataDome during my PhD, or now that I'm at DataDome, I like to share things that can be shared. Not everything is secret. If we go on Discord, we'll see that anyway, attackers are already sharing some information. So, I mean, I think, and at DataDome in general, we think that, at some point it might be worth, writing a technical blog post and sharing it with everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned your role at DataDome. Do you want to give us a brief introduction about you, your career, your PhD experience, and so on?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, I started playing with bots maybe 8 years ago, 7 years ago during my PhD. So I started by working on browser fingerprinting, but at the time more on the tracking/privacy, aspect of fingerprinting. And during my experiment, I did a lot of scrapers that were collecting information about scripts, execution traces, etc. And at some point, I started to get blocked. I wanted to understand why. And it was the same time, when Headless Chrome got released. And I mean, if you remember at the time, the best headless browser, or the best or only headless browser was, Phantom.js. Otherwise, you had to use, Selenium, etc. So it was a big revolution. I know it was the end of my PhD. I had enough articles written, so I was able to focus more on the fun part of bot detection, fingerprinting for bot detection and not for privacy, let's say. And then I started to discuss with DataDome more and more at the time, and I decided to join them after. And now it's been almost 5 years. So I started, I would say, mostly by doing, JavaScript signals. Basically, when I joined, I did mostly this, and then over time, as the company grew, I did more diverse things.
That's interesting. And if a young person want to start a career in this industry, what would you suggest? which skills to learn, books, resources to read, and so on.
Yeah, actually, I really need to write an article about this topic. I started a list, but a lot of people are asking me this question. I would say you have to be curious because what you were saying before is that there is no, most of the information is kept secret, or you will find it on Discord, on forums, etc. So you need to be curious, and then it depends on what you want to do in the antibot industry. So I think a lot of people may be thinking about JavaScript detection. So in this case, of course, you need to know JavaScript, the details, the language. Not like we don't care about web framework or whatever, but you need to know about JavaScript, about browsers in general. Familiar with how it works, networking, iframe, web workers, whatever. Everything that can be useful, to detect bots. But then, like, there are probably more positions on the cybersecurity analyst or fraud analyst side. So these are positions where customers will contact the support to so that you help them review some traffic for false positive, false negative, and it's more entry level career position. So it might be easier, and it's quite interesting because you get the opportunity to analyze traffic at scale, block block bots, etc. So this is quite cool. And then, like, I don't know how other companies are structured, but most of the time, at some point, companies start to split the team doing the detection from the team, building the detection engine itself, because at some point you can't expect people to be, fluent in, real-time code, doing real-time request processing, and at the same time, doing research to improve quality of the detection. But like, if you're a good software engineer, you like to work, on behavioral engine, etc. It can be also a good way to enter this industry.
Oh, here we have a question about this topic. Let me highlight it.
Is it possible to work for an antibot company and then after leaving, create bots? I don't really know actually what's in my contract specifically, but like, probably at some point it's about ethics. It's not because you can do something that legally that you will do it. So I don't really know, but probably, like on the long term, attacking your previous customers, it's probably not the best thing to do, to develop your career. So maybe, but it's about you and your ethics in this case.
Yeah. I totally agree. I suppose that also going from a company to another, okay, maybe probably there are some MDNAs, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yes, of course.
But more generally, I think maybe I misread the second part of the question. Making bots in general, not necessarily against our own customers. I mean, I would say it depends on the purpose. I think, to be clear, not all kind of bots, are linked to cyber criminals. Okay, that's not because I'm at DataDome. That's the way I think. I mean, probably you all read, articles, and I mean, Pierluigi, you published several articles about, scraping. Is it legal or not? And I think you will invite someone more on the low side to discuss it. So I would say then it depends, what's the purpose. If you are using scrapers to, gather information to, I don't know, like detect, email leaks or whatever, it's completely different from, conducting credential stuffing attacks.
Yeah, of course. This leads us to another question that I will have made later, but we are here. So yes, there are good bots and bad bots, I suppose. Is it something that in your company, I imagine you're treating them differently, because one thing is scraping and one thing is, credential stuffing or whatever other frauds that are possible to do in the websites.
Yeah. So for us, a bad bot is just, let's say you have all the traffic, then we try to detect, are you a bot or not? And then everything, like the notion of good or bad depend on the customer. Basically, that's not up to us. We don't really care. It's more like the intent or the benefit from the customer is the only one that can decide it. So by default, we say this is a bot. Of course, for non-good bots like Google, Bing Bot, etc. We we have IP ranges, we have automations to automatically authenticate them, etc. But then at some point, if you have a partner and you have a business relationship with a partner making bots, you will have to authorize this traffic yourself, because only you know that this is someone you want to allow on your website.
Understood. And generally speaking, how does an antibot works? I mean, what are the main features that a modern antibot has?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know exactly for all all competitors, so I will talk mostly about DataDome. But I mean, like some things are are probably more or less the same. Basically, I would say like we use different kind of signals. I mean, bots are quite difficult to detect nowadays, and so we use all signals available. So JavaScript signals with browser fingerprinting, SDK signals for mobile app. Then different kind of behavioral signals. So it can be, behavioral signals related to mouse movements, touch events, but also, to sequences of requests. And then all the contextual reputational signals like IP session reputation, proxy detection. And then, you have all the signals and you need to take like a decision as fast as possible without, blocking actual human users. So then like the way we work at DataDome is that we have, like different models. We don't try to stuff everything into a single model. So we have different models, we have different rules, because sometimes, having a single signal to true makes you a bot. Like for example, CDP detection, okay, or, like certain like WebDriver equal true. If you have it, you're a bot. You don't need machine learning. And then like the different type of machine learning models, the way they work is that they will work, for example, on fingerprinting attributes. Other will work on the user session, on the IP, on the traffic website. They will look at the data at different granularity, at different time frame, to ensure that, we look at the traffic using different point of view, because we know that attackers are, trying to forge everything, trying, to stay under the radar by, being slower, having a more human-like behavior. So we try, to look at the traffic from all possible angles. And then like, for session analysis, I mean that's a recurring topic that I see on Discord. Probably all bot vendors, they have a cookie. Everyone is trying to get like a cookie from a bot vendor, good cookie. So yeah, we store information about the user session in the cookie. There are a lot of things in the cookie. I won't say what. It's encrypted. Probably I mean, you noticed it, and this is used to perform some session analysis, etc.
Great. And do you think that in the past 2 or 3 years, the antibot industry has changed, at least for is there something that now is more predominant in the bot detection respecting to maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
So you mean on the defense side or on the attack side?
No, on the different side, yes.
Yeah, I mean, like attackers are, like what I notice is that, attackers are trying to find real bypasses, like not, playing by the rules. By bypass, I mean, not like, oh, I change my user agent, I have a good fingerprint, I use proxies. I'm talking, about, like what we would call, security vulnerability. They try to avoid playing by the rules. There is the normal bot detection game, with fingerprinting, all the signals that I described before. And, lately, it's not only this year, but, more and more, like there is a lot at stake, particularly, for bots trying to get, limited edition products, for example. And so they are trying to play completely, like not use any rules, try to find, real bypasses, maybe by targeting, unprotected APIs. So things, that makes you completely, like undetected. And also what I would say is that because bots have better fingerprint by default, probably we'll talk about it after, but like today, you just use the new headless Chrome. You give a few flags, and like you have almost no fingerprinting signals left to detect you. And because of that, I think it forced us, at least at DataDome, okay, you can invest all the things you want in the fingerprint on the fingerprint side, but investing in behavioral detection is also really important, because if you put all your eggs on the fingerprinting side, then what's going to happen when someone is going to come with a clean fingerprint.
Yes. Another question from our audience is, what's the proportion of illegal bots in your experience compared to scraping bots?
I'm not good at statistics, but I mean, like one study we did last year, more detailed on a smaller, subset of e-commerce websites during Black Friday period. I think it was probably, like scrapping is like way bigger, like probably hundreds times, bigger compared to credential stuffing. And then, credit card fraud is, so probably let's say if credit card fraud is like 1x, credential stuffing maybe 10,000x, and scraping is like 10 billion, 100 billion x. Because of course, because of the nature of the thing, first scraping is more or less legal depending on the use case. And also, if you want to scrape a website, if you want to get all product information, you may have to do 100,000 requests. Credential stuffing people are less willing to do it. You may not want to end up in jail. So yeah, and credit card fraud it's even worse. So we see it less in terms of volume.
Great. And instead, according to your experience, on the attack side, of course, attack side is taking on web scraping, so the legal part of the botting industry. On the attack side, which is today for you the most difficult tool or solution to detect? Headless Chrome driver, no driver, or something like that.
Yeah, I would say like so. I mean, I wrote about it like lately, but basically, because of all the changes that happened with headless Chrome lately, there is a new wave of bot frameworks like no driver, like Selenium driverless, and all the variants like the equivalent for Playwright and everything. These frameworks basically they aim to remove the last remaining side effects of headless Chrome. By that, it's not a secret. Basically they avoid using CDP runtime enable. They re-implement things at a lower level to avoid having this kind of side effects. And so it means that these bots, from a fingerprinting point of view, if you're quite smart on the attack side, by that I mean if you're not lying about your operating system, which could have other side effects. But like, let's say you're on Windows, you run your bot on Windows, and you pretend to be on Windows in your bot, then the side effects are almost non-existent. So it's quite challenging, and then you need to rely more on other techniques like behavioral analysis, proxy detection, all kind of reputations. And then what we see as well is, and you talk about it in your newsletter, is like lately there is a lot of discussion around anti-detect browsers, things like Dolphin Anti, multi-login. In the past, it was only used by, I mean, maybe not only, but mostly used by people to do things manually. And lately, all of these products, they started to expose, APIs to automate these browsers. And so, they start to advertise themselves more and more for use cases around, scraping, but not only all the things that a bot can do. And they tend to have, really good fingerprinting. They're quite smart. As a user, if you are going to do something stupid, like, I don't know, choosing a web GPU, or GPU linked to an operating system, but claiming to be on another, they will tell you, oh, you are trying to do something stupid, and they will prevent you actually from doing these kind of things that could be detected.
Yes, I've noticed also this changing their business model, because I talked to some of the CEO of these companies, and yes, they're more exploring this market, this web scraping market. The downside of this solution, in my opinion, just like any solution based on real browser, is that they are very demanding from the resource intensive.
Yeah,
they're very resource intensive, and they are not so great at larger scale scraping. But if you need a small, medium-sized scraping project, they can be a good solution. And one you mentioned before, all the open source packages like NoDriver and so on. What's the role of open source in your work? I mean, do you read many the code of these tools for packages to understand what's happening and improve the solution? Do you think that there are some tools that are not publicly shared? Of course there are, but how many? Do you have an idea that are not publicly shared for being more effective and to be avoid to be detected by your solutions?
Yeah, I mean, like when you have access to the code, you can start to read it. You can start to play with it on your machine. Make a few requests, study it. So yeah, definitely it's easier, to understand how it works and to find new signals. When you don't have access to, let's say like you have a intermediate situation where you have access to a product where you can trigger a bot request, maybe force the product to make a request on a website you control. Then like you are in sort of black box situation where you can force the product to make a request. Then you can have a look at it, but like if your like let's say if you want to use fingerprinting signals, but your script today doesn't collect the proper signals, may not be helpful. So it's a bit more challenging, but at least you can still force it to make requests, study the behavior. And then you have situation where you can't even play with it, just someone that has a bot. And then in this case, you just need to monitor the traffic, monitor a lot of metrics, and see if like there are potential false negatives and find ways to detect them. But in the end, there are not millions of ways to make a bot. I would say either you use a real automated browser, headless browser, with your own framework, or your own CDP implementation, or you like Selenium, Playwright, whatever, or you don't use a browser and you will pretend you will forge everything. You will forge all the JS payloads. You will reverse engineer everything. Once you know it, you can still try to find like you can still study generic frameworks, and that's why the CDP signal was really cool at the time. I mean, it's still cool. It still catches a lot of bots, but it was cool because it was targeting the like low level protocol that was used by that is still used by Puppeteer, Playwright, everything. So even someone that was that had created his own framework, you were able to detect it. Yeah.
Great. We talked a lot about fingerprinting. Do you mind, for the people who is not familiar with the topic, give us an introduction on what is fingerprinting? Because we have also different levels of fingerprinting. We have fingerprinting at a browser level, at TLS level, and so on. So if you mind sharing with us a brief introduction about all these topics.
Yeah. So basically, what we call a browser fingerprint, I mean, the like official definition is like a combination of attribute that is more or less unique and more or less stable, and we call it a fingerprint because of the analogy with your like actual fingerprint. And in the past, it was more about fingerprinting for tracking. It had to be unique, etc. You can compute a fingerprint using everything you want. Basically, there is like it doesn't necessarily have to be JavaScript APIs. It can be HTTP headers on the server side. It can be TLS fingerprint. It can be like in a mobile app attributes collected with the SDK. And it doesn't have to be something stable, fully stable. Like for example, you can collect a sort of execution trace or timing, as long as after you're able to make sense out of it, then why not? And when it comes to bot detection, I feel like we mix two things. We say like fingerprint, we use it for like the standard definition, like we take your GPU information, OS, list of phones, whatever, to create a sort of hash more or less unique. And then also it includes a lot of challenges that just aim, to detect side effects of Endless Chrome, of Puppeteer, of all these things. And these attributes, you don't really care about having them, in the fingerprinting hash. Basically, if you have WebDriver equal true, I don't care, the value of your fingerprint hash. I just know that you are automated. So there are like sort of two categories of signals in the fingerprinting world, I would say.
Okay, and I suppose there's with more than I've read that there are more than 800 browser APIs on the newest version of Chrome. You have many possibilities of creating a unique fingerprint for any user. Is there some set of values you're particularly looking for to detect a bot or not? You mentioned the CDP layer, but also, I suppose, the machine, the hardware, of course, is something to care about it.
Yeah, so CDP detection, of course. I mean, it like that's the kind of thing that I call like a strong signal. You don't always find your strong signals. Then you want to find other signals like weak signals or sort of proof of works. So the first thing is that whenever there is a release, you can have a look at the new APIs that are added or that are removed. It's not ultra powerful, but it can help you to catch bots. A lot of bots are still hard coding the user agent. There may be maybe they dynamically increase the value, the version, but they keep an old version maybe because it's dockerized and they didn't properly automate everything. So it's still helpful. It's not like the killer signal. But then in general, you want to have a look at like this long tail of APIs that provide information about the user device, the user preferences. So this can be APIs that provide information about the time zone, the languages, WebGL, and then you can use these these weak signals to create signals features. Like for example, like I wrote a blog post where I showed there are at least 6 simple ways to collect information about the user languages. Then you can create a signal like are all the languages the same, or are there some mismatch, etc. And then you can either use it manually if you're doing a review, or feed it to a machine learning algorithm. And then also you can use certain APIs to observe, like to run some sort of proof of work or red pills, you can call it as you want, but basically to observe some side effects. So for example, things like canvas fingerprint, you will ask to draw certain operation, you will have a look at the output. And for example, you can, okay, I ask you to draw something simple. And if you lied about your operating system, then the value, maybe you will return a Linux value, but you're on Windows. Okay, easy. Or same with font enumeration, or any kind of timing measurement that you can use to detect if someone is lying about its environment.
Yeah, I suppose also IPs of the scraper of the bot has an important role in this. Not only if a data center if you're running a data center, but also in the timing zone of the IP, if it's correctly correlated to the time zone of the browser or something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, about the IPs, there is one question. In an ideal world where we can align stack fingerprints, browser, TLS, and DOS, do you think ISP proxies will become obsolete compared to residential ones?
So I don't know what the person has in mind, but like maybe you can clarify. I will start to answer, and then you can clarify to see if I'm going in the right direction. But like ISP proxy, I would say they are a bit easier to detect because most of the time, I mean, these are like IPs registered under the name of ISP. So the IP may be flagged as belonging to AT&T, Comcast. So for the bot developer, this is cool because then you have a good reputation. But the IP is stable, like it's located in a data center, so you have good latency, you have good stability, compared to a residential proxy that is located on the end user device, and so then you may have more latency, etc. So the thing with ISP proxy is that most of the time proxy providers, they will like handle them at least using a /24, let's say, because like they won't handle them one by one. So what happens if someone was doing bad things before, or even if you are doing bad things and you get caught and the IPs are flagged? With residential proxies, it's a bit more difficult. You can't just flag you can flag the whole IP, of course, but because by definition it's located on a real user device, then you have to at least deal with a potential real human user. But it can be worse. Like let's say if the device is connected on a Wi-Fi in a home of, I don't know, like 6 people, then potentially you have 6 real human users. But if it's like behind like university proxy on a mobile IP, it's even worse, because then you have like thousands of users. And so if you have a clean fingerprint and a clean IP, then of course you can't just shoot at the whole IP. It's still an interesting signal, but the bigger the more the IP is shared, the less useful knowing that the IP was used as a proxy is helpful. That's why I think it's more and more important to be able to detect synchronously that a request is routed through a proxy. Not only that an IP was used recently as a proxy, this is still interesting, particularly on non-heavily shared IPs. But on shared IPs, you want to know that this request, among maybe 500 other requests, only this one was routed through a proxy. This is more interesting and useful from a detection point of view.
Understood. Very interesting. And we talked before about the number of requests made for scraping and compared to the frauds and credential stuffing and something like that. Do you think that with the AI boom we are living, there will be again more scraping on one side, because all these models need to train on data that it comes from the web, basically. And on the other side, do you think that there will be more AI tools for scraping? Just nowadays, there are many players popping up with their no-code AI-assisted scraping. Do you think this is an issue on your side, or it's too early to know?
So there are like 2 parts in your question. The first one, is data gold? Probably. Given your own company, I think you won't contradict me. Companies are willing to pay a lot to get access to high quality data or user generated data. And there were a lot of articles lately about AI companies that try to stay under the radar, that do not respect robots.txt. Everyone acts like they are shocked. I don't think people watching this live will be shocked, because they are used, to this kind of situation. But yeah, a lot of AI companies are probably, scraping full crazy mode to get access, to specialized data, to train their own models, and maybe, provide value on a specific niche. And I think, it's difficult to measure, but probably it's probably really important for these companies. On the other side, when it comes to AI, using AI to make scrapers, so yeah, I think there are potentially 2 categories of bots. Let's say we see a lot of bot frameworks that aim to leverage AI, specifically LLMs and image recognition, to ease bot development, specifically scrapers, so that everyone can make bots without knowing how to code. And when it comes to scraping, one of the worst thing, when you make a bot, I also make scrapers from time to time, but it's to create good CSS selector. You want them to be accurate, but you want them to be stable over time. And I guess that if you are doing scraping at scale, it can be painful to maintain. And so I think that tools, that makes it easy to address these points, it's probably really helpful for people making bots. I don't know if it will help, to make the development of bot more mainstream. I don't know. But on the other hand, you have things that, like what I would call AI agents. Probably, end users, they want to automate a task, and then maybe they would use a Chrome extension or whatever that would enable them, to learn, in a smarter way than just, clicking exactly on this pixel or this CSS selector. But, maybe learn that I want to post, the articles from, I don't know, the CSV file or whatever. And maybe LLMs and AI in general will, help, to create a lot of use cases that will be used by the general population. Yeah.
Yeah. On the other side, I think that on the defense side, AI is at least widely used, just also for because I think you have a lot of data points for each session for a user to understand if there is some red flags to block this session. So I suppose it's not something new. It's not something new for antibot companies.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like the AI wave, I'm on the tech side, so I may be a bit more, pragmatic. But yeah, on the detection side, the AI we use is more like, classical machine learning. Basically, we don't use image generation or LLMs to do detection. But yeah, clearly all the things related, to classification, like gradient boosting trees, outlier detection, all these kind of things, it's really helpful because at some point, if you want to, scale, each customer is different, so you want to adapt the detection for each of them. You want to, have a detection that is evolving over time, so you can't do everything manually. Yeah.
Another question from the chat. So, why are unblocker API so effective at bypassing antibot protection? Do you think there will come a time where they can be easily blocked?
It's a cat and mouse game, but I would say when it's easier to attack than to defend. I'm not saying that because I'm defending, but I'm also making bots from time to time. And when you attack a website or a technology, you just need to find one hole, in the defense. And if you're smart enough, you try to stay under the radar, you may be more or less successful. When you defend on the other side, you need to anticipate all possible things that not only block what exists today, but things that could be done tomorrow. You should not, you need to block as fast as possible. You should not impact real users. So you have these trade-offs, and also like production is different from theory. You like when it comes to bot detection. I mean, I'm talking it's broader than just this question, but basically you have a lot of customers that have a lot of different tech stacks. You may not integrate every time at the same place. They may have misconfigurations. Sometimes they may send like let's say some corrupted data or data that is not properly interpreted. And so when you create a detection system, you need to be resilient because you never want to block everyone. You don't want to take too many risks. So you need to find the right balance. Yeah.
Yeah, this reminds me of one time that there was a website that I was trying to scrape, and it was a difficult job. It was protected by another antibot solution, and at the end of the day, I had a look at their robot.txt file, and there was a tool used for SEO that was completely configured for go to the product page, of course, because they needed it for SEO, and simply by using their user agent, you were able to scrape the whole website. So it's not only sometimes it's more a problem of misconfiguration, probably of the website, and on the capacity of the antibot solution.
Yeah, I mean, this one is like typically, when I was saying like some people are trying not to play by the rules, this is the kind of thing that I have in mind. You have a lot of like people, when they buy DataDome, then you may have, not only cybersecurity people, you may have, someone managing like the website, sort of like e-commerce person, and they may just want to whitelist SEO bot, and for them, the easiest solution. Oh, this is a bot running on my, contractor machine, so it's difficult to get the IP changing. I would just, whitelist the whole user agent, and then you have a bot developer, that is, scanning for, sort of magic user agents that find it, and yeah, these kind of things may happen. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's difficult for antibot solution to find the right balance between website usability on one side and bot protection, because I think it also depends from the industry to find the right balance.
Talking about usability, there is a good question about JavaScript VM-based obfuscation. Yeah. So
let me read it for the audio version of this video. Do you think that a JavaScript virtual machine will become the next level of antibot obfuscation, or is too challenging to maintain, similar to TikTok VM?
Yes. No, I think so. This is something important. And this is quite funny. Okay. Don't make fun of me. I would show something. Okay. Actually, this is the book like crafting interpreters, but in general, like virtualization to secure JavaScript code. This is like a good technique. At DataDome, we are investing in obfuscation. I'm not going to disclose everything, but a lot of people are discussing it on Discord anyways, are looking at the code. When it comes to obfuscation, there are like, let's say, two techniques. There are like the classical, obfuscation techniques where you are going to use, string encoding, control flow flattening, add opaque predicates, all these kind of things to make the code less readable. But basically, like a lot of people can argue that this is easier to, deobfuscate. The good thing is that this is significantly faster than using VM-based obfuscation. But VM-based obfuscation, basically, you will take your program and you will just compile it or transpile it to a custom bytecode. You will create your own virtual machine, your own interpreter. You will add some, mitigation techniques, to make it more secure. It comes at a cost. It's more secure. I'm not going to argue about it. It's not a secret today. That's not exactly what we do at DataDome. But it comes at a cost in terms of performance. And I think it's important for us to invest in parallels, because there are certain customers that will completely refuse to use VM-based obfuscation. For example, on the e-commerce website, for certain customers, it's completely unacceptable to add, significant latency. And what customers are using, to measure the impact of VM-based obfuscation is Google PageSpeed Insight. So you may say this is fast on my developer machine, yeah, but what they use is Google PageSpeed Insight, and it will emulate a really bad Android phone with slow network condition, and all of a sudden it will tell you that your obfuscated JS code takes 3 seconds to execute, and that this is completely unacceptable. So in my opinion, I think having good classical obfuscation that you can use everywhere, and VM-based obfuscation that you can use on critical endpoints in a captcha or in invisible captcha. This should be the good trade-off, because clearly it makes the life of attackers more difficult to understand the signals that we collect, but also to forge payloads. But okay, I'm long answer, but at some point also I think there is a diminishing return. I was discussing with people making bots, and like obfuscation is always, interesting topic. And I was like, tomorrow, if you need to attack a website that has, the best obfuscation in the world, you're not going to try to forge everything, reverse engineer everything, and use, I don't know, like a request library. Instead, what you may do is you will send, you will create perfect bot, let's say, that executes, real browser, no CDP runtime, etc. You will try to get a cookie, and then you will transfer it to your less expensive bots. And so at some point, it's really important, in my opinion, to invest in all the signals, all the detection techniques in parallel. Because if you become so good at some point, but you're not good enough in the others, that the attackers are smart and lazy, they will just target the weakest link, and they will completely ignore, your obfuscation, and they will do it differently.
Yes, also because on the attacker side, I think that it takes so much time and effort to deobfuscate everything and it becomes almost unuseful once you update the code on the defense side. So probably it's more time effective to invest in a browser with a perfect scraper with a perfect fingerprint, rather than trying to deobfuscate a complex VM.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, there are two costs. Like you have software development cost, software maintenance cost, and then you have like the cost in terms of computational resources. And at some point, let's say you are running a small company, you are like a team of 2 people, you have hundreds of scrapers that you're used to gather price. Like maybe you're willing to pay a bit more for servers than hiring a real human, because then you have HR, you have you have someone to manage, and so you may be willing to invest in a few servers, and get rid of obfuscation by having real browsers. Yeah.
Great. Last question from Mark. I think in the latest web unblocker comparison article, DataDome blocked all unblockers. Isn't that right? And you're right, Martin.
Yeah, but I will be fair. Like, I won't say DataDome is perfect. Web unlockers are bad. Basically, it's a cat and mouse game. We study web unlockers. They probably study, DataDome. And, like, depending on the time, probably like we don't always block all the requests. I prefer to be transparent. A lot of people, that subscribe to your newsletter anyway are making bots. So it's quite challenging. That's what I was saying before, is that it's a cat and mouse game. They have dedicated teams. In my team, I have people that have OKRs on, having happy customers. So basically, having the best bot detection, not impacting customer business. And I guess that at Bright Data, at Scraper API, at Scraping Bee, they probably have opposite OKRs, where they pay someone to have, scrapers or web unlockers that must not be blocked, above a certain threshold. And so, yeah, there is a conflict.
Yeah, of course, because the technology changes, and one last message from Martin. Thanks for the perfect bot concept. To conquer without risk is to triumph without glory. Great. With this sentence, I think we can end this discussion. Thank you so much for being here, Antoine. It was a pleasure, and I think we brought some value to the viewers.
You're welcome. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.